Buongiorno.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this second day of Be Open. We are very happy that you're still with us. This is going to be an even richer day than yesterday. For those who were not attending yesterday, we have been talking about sustainability. The central idea for the 3 days. Tomorrow we will be meeting at 6 p.m. to close this round of meetings, which are not conferences. It's rather an integral project that the Be Open Foundation, supported by Elena Baturina, has launched here in Milan these days, and it's going to take place also in London and New York, and it's a mid-long-term project. The idea is to develop a think tank, a platform of minds, of excellent key players, of thinking and acting about the future. And it's just at the beginning of a very long journey we want to do with you. All that you see is being translated into Russian, English, and French. We have web streaming worldwide. Yesterday we have had a lot of people following us, watching and listening to us in other countries. This is our second day. As you know, it's going to be devoted to happiness. The theme of happiness over the last few years has also become a very important economic topic. Sociologists, psychologists, economists are setting the new standards for quality of life, not starting from the GDP, but rather from the perception of a happy life. It's, of course, a very complex exercise, and today we want to talk about it with very authoritative speakers from various disciplines and countries. The topic today is even broader, is even more open. Without any further ado, let me just invite the speakers today. Here on the speakers' podium, we have Carlo Cracco, Elio Fiorucci, Ezio Matsuo, Vladimir Piroshkov, and our special guest, Julian Schnabel and Giulia Tacchini, who will be helping us in introducing this broad topic of happiness. They will do it starting from their own experience. We don't want to bore you with abstract theories. We are rather keen with this distinguished guest to come up with ideas, projects, concrete ideas, allowing us to get into the merit of the theme. Alberto Alessi is on the way. He will join us later. There were some traffic problems. Milan is very busy, and we have a lot of traffic in this week. We are really becoming an international city, but it's difficult to reach central Milan from the lake. I will give you a sort of introductory remark, a very short and concise one, for you to understand the spirit of the Future Concept Lab and my approach in curating and organizing this round of contributions starting from future paradigms. We believe we are going through a very special time. We believe this is not only an era of changes, we are really changing the way we live and the whole framework. This was the reason for gathering speakers from very different spheres, from the cooking sector, Carlo Cracco, to the world of planning, teletransportation, with Piroshkov, Brazil, an emerging country. Ezio Matsuo is directing the Design, Research and Development Department of Grandene, a large Brazilian company. A brand which can introduce you to his word is Melissa, a success story in Brazil, and not only in Brazil. He's going to tell us about an opening in New York and in other cities, and then with Julian Schnabel we will get into the word of creativity in the broadest sense of the term, the arts, the cinema, a multifaceted artist, Elio Fiorucci. It's very embarrassing to introduce him. He's a name, a guarantee. He will share his vision, which has always been very close to the theme of love and happiness, love therapy. His latest project is closely related to this dimension. And then we will have a different happiness pill, Giulia Tacchini, who is probably less well known abroad, a young entrepreneur, assistant to the design course, food design at Politecnico Technical University in Milan. We want to involve younger generations. There are many students attending the meeting, and we really wanted to give room also to projects and project-related experiences, and Julia will be talking about that. A change in the era. That's difficult to say, but it's extremely difficult to define the content of the change of era. Today, we will take a slightly different perspective. We will change about the new paradigms for the future. We will focus actually on 4 central paradigms, allowing us to organize these 3 days. Let me just underline that the whole work is also contained in a book, I Paradigmi del Futuro, 4 Paradigms for the Future, which is available in the bookstore here at the university, and it's also available in English language. It's an e-book that you can download. We have been working with the Future Concept Lab for about 10 years to produce it. Yesterday we were talking about the first paradigm. We were talking about sustainability in a different way with various contributions. I would really like to thank the speakers of yesterday's, Claire Brass, Sas Brown, Luisa Collina, and Maria Sebregon. They have covered the topic of sustainability, moving away from classical environmental schemes. As it's always the case, ideological, political, sociological pioneers paved the way, as they have been doing in the 70s. There was an ecology movement, and in the last 10 years, this dimension has really spread, and it has been impacting on everybody's life, changing environmentalism into sustainability. We need to find new ethical and aesthetic languages and ways of producing culture around the theme of sustainability. We have been talking about it yesterday, and as I have done yesterday, I have selected a short video clip. It's a campaign which starts from our daily needs to come up with a different sustainability solution. Let's watch the video clip and cover the other 3 paradigms. This is why we think this approach to communication can be very interesting. The idea of lightness, a soft dimension, the softness is for sure something unusual when we talk about sustainability. Yesterday we were saying that it's extremely important to work on pleasant, appealing themes in everyday life to convey new values. We think this idea of using textiles and fabrics in a slightly different way to make everyday life softer and sweeter can be an interesting key of interpretation. Let's move on to the second paradigm. We will dwell upon it. It's trust and sharing. All the research over the last 10 years has highlighted in sociology that the new concept of happiness doesn't have to do with a private or individual sphere as it was in the 80s and the 90s. It's strongly related to the opportunity of sharing happiness. The fil rouge of many contributions will be food. We will hear from Carlo Cracco. So this idea of sharing happiness through food, this is a great novelty if we look at the scenario of the previous years. It's a new paradigm which is some way opposed to the buffer show system. The fashion has been a driving force for 30 years, and it was focused on an idea of individual happiness and look to the capability of producing an individual style. So we will be working on sharing through new technological tools, but to do it, to use the social networks and the other media, we need trust, the dimension of reliability, loyalty, and trust that are far away from the conventional theory of communication, which was based on image rather than contents. So it's just important that people talk about you. This was the conventional approach. Now we live in a different universe, in a world where it's extremely important that people talk well about you and that they use authentic terms talking about what you really do. So this idea of trust which nourishes the sharing. And this is a quantum leap that the companies will have to do. A company which has already done it, which is communicating in a very fair and correct way, is for sure IKEA. Let's see a small example of how the idea of living and sharing can also combine different aspects.
Yo me quedo para siempre con mi reina y su bandera. Ya no hay fronteras, me dejaré llevar a ningún lugar. No puedo vivir sin ti, no hay manera. No puedo estar sin ti, no hay manera.
Donde cabe uno, caben dos.
As you know, the conceptual communication school of IKEA with Apple and other well-known brands has paved the way to new values. The theme of sharing is also very close to the genius loci, to the culture of Sweden and Scandinavian countries, where this theme is very central. This idea of democratic sharing, of accessibility, of experiencing quality in a very simple way, in a smart way. This smart dimension which leads us to the third paradigm, which is strongly associated with the topics we're going to cover today. Elio Fiorucci, Alessi Design Objects, and Melissa Shoes are very close to this idea of quick and deep. So speed is a speed of reaction, is being very smart and being in tune with the spirit of time, which is not just speeding up, it's not excessive speed, which sometimes jeopardizes quality. Fast food, by way of analogy, proves it. We have been talking about fast good, i.e. preserving quality even if you want to be accessible and timely. Yesterday we were talking about the kairos. Do you remember the time of opportunity? When we talk about quick, this is what we mean. It's not just about being fast at any price. You have to be in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. To prepare yourself maybe takes you time, a very long time, a long preparation, but there you have to be quick. You have to be on the spot at the right time to get this deep quality which is being required by most consumers. We do no longer have individuals and users and who are keen on speed. Life rhythms are changing. Weekends are being experienced as a time of decompression because people have realized that working 7 days a week doesn't add quality to their life and what they do. So it's a way of reshuffling the cards. And now we have vending machines distributing in a metro station small design objects or small projects developed by students who have been working creatively. Commodities are no longer trivial products which are used for a functional purpose, and they are very different from high quality products that are not easily accessible. Commodities can feature quality. This is the new scenario that we want to cover with you. Here you see another contribution, and then we will open the debate with our guests. Let's say that for sure music for teenagers, and not only for them, represents an emblematic example of what I'm telling you. There's a rhythm, a quick dimension of music which is very intense, which conveys high quality experiences. Many sectors, including fashion, will hear about Melissa. It's extremely important to think we can no longer choose between speed and quality. We need both. It's just like form and function in the world of design and projects. Once you said, shall I privilege the form, the style to produce non-functional objects today? Function embraces beauty and aesthetics. So we have now really solved these contrasts. What I have been telling you is probably enough to start this second day. Tomorrow we will have the fourth paradigm, unique and universal. We will be talking about the second globalization, how the genius loci, the local culture, can become universal without giving up its nature. It's the contrary of the first era of globalization, with McDonald's spreading all over the world with its culture. Today, the dimension is completely different. It's multipolar. Each reality, each country, each city can express its genius loci, provided it's open, ready to exchange with the rest of the world. This is the topic tomorrow. There will be major architects, designers. The project tomorrow we'll get back to the conventional realm of the design week, but this is the broad theme of happiness for today. Let me invite Carlo Cracco. We have started with food and nutrition. Carlo Cracco will show you a loop of images to give him his perspective about food.
Buongiorno a tutti.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Well, the topic of food and cooking, you know, I'm a chef. When I started, I could never even imagine that I would step up on stage to tell you what I do. Well, maybe it's because of my shyness, or I could not grasp the connection between getting on stage to tell you things and what we really do in our daily practice. Well, you know, the world of cuisine or food has changed radically. Now, going back to the issue of aesthetics, if you take any old cookbook or ancient cookbook, food was all into aesthetics. Very often chefs were architects, especially in France. In Italy they were a bit more of chefs rather than architecture. But what was important for a chef was to build, to mount a pièce, to set up a tray focused on aesthetics. It was not so important whether it was not good or not good, because there was no cold chain, there was no way of preserving food. So you had to come up with tricks to overcome this problem. Then what happened was usability, so to speak. So food became the heritage available to everyone, became affordable to everyone, and so tradition opened up. So we have our countryside, let's call it healthy food, and then you grow it, and then you process it or consume it. And then we had a later stage in the 60s and 70s where we had a lot of, you know, affluence. If you remember, in all restaurants, you had pasta with cream, ham, and peas, and it was really terrible, horrible dishes. I cooked them myself, and I didn't even know why I was cooking that stuff. But that's what the way it was. You could not argue with that. From there, we moved on to a concept of cooking, and you can see it in the images that are being projected. We moved on to a more essential, cleaner type of cooking, something more down to earth, which is actually, it has an eye on aesthetics, because food is made of a color and shape, but it's mainly done of substance, the different consistencies and in perfumes and flavors, which are unique, so to speak. So that shift was almost a radical turning point. We moved from the concept of fat, represented by cream, relating to wealth, to something much, you know, leaner. There are no sauces in our dishes today. Sauces are just details. It's just the final detail to sort of remind people of some flavors. The dish used to be the sauce. The sauce was the main point. You could determine the category of a dish or the importance of a dish starting from the sauce. So food became more important. It became all the more important as we made it available to everyone. Haute cuisine, I don't know why they define it as haute cuisine, seems to be far away, inaccessible, something for few. You need to have eaten at least 50 tons of things, no 200 different products. You need to have traveled around the world to do that. Well, indeed, haute cuisine is just the result of an experience. It's the result of an ability to change and to adjust to real life. Today, we no longer eat the way we used to eat 20 to 30 years ago. We eat in a totally different way, sometimes in a worse way, because we are always in a hurry. We lack stimuli from inside, but we often eat by checking what the chef is doing. We want to see what the chef is doing. So cooking is a much more personal view on an ingredient. So each of us tries to express himself or herself through a simple concept. Like you saw before, they were dried vegetables, simple vegetables like carrots, potatoes, courgette, asparagus, but they were dried. Why did we dry them? The concept was that of chips. Chips works everywhere, from the north to the south, at any latitude it works well. But we wanted to change the terms, the paradigms. So it's no longer an industrial French fries of dubious origin, but we did the same with simple vegetables that preserve their original color, but they change in terms of shape. They're crunchy, they're fat-free, so they are good for everyone. They have no contraindication, and they are salt-free. This is just a way to communicate, to make people understand how by reinterpreting some ingredients or some preparations, we can really we can actually talk to a much broader audience today, because the issue of cuisine and chefs in general is that they live in a sort of closed-up microcosm. What we are is actually, we are happiness suppliers. All the dishes we cook, last night I counted them as 550, the number of dishes that were prepared in the kitchen. 400 of them, if 400 of them reach their destination, it's a great success. It means giving unique moments to people who came to enjoy a break or some entertainment, some occasions for well-being through a meal. And through those dishes, they could find feelings or emotions that maybe have got nothing to do with the dish that they are enjoying, but inside they host a number of figures and memories that really make you feel good. The best compliment that you may receive, even if it is banal, is seeing a transformation in the customer, leaving the restaurant happy. He's usually in a hurry, is always stressed out, and you see his face changing when he leaves the restaurant. So we come in with a menu, and we establish a dialogue between what we have before our eyes and what we assume, what we do. And that's the most delicate part of our job. That is the ability to get into the customer's head, the head of the customer is sitting in front of that dish, and try to make the customer understand what we have done before. That's the hardest thing to do. We reckon that out of 10 dishes, if one remains in the memory of the person who ate it, is a great success. One dish out of 10 sticking to the mind of people. Sometimes you even score 2 or 3 out of 10. It depends on your attitude, on the customer's attitude, actually, or the person enjoying the dish. It very much depends on the user, in inverted commas. But after some time, after years, or when you have to deal with a person coming from a different culture or a different customs, you know, remembering a dish or a preparation linked to the chef, the person who did it, I think it's real fun and it's exciting. For us, it's a big satisfaction. It pays back more than anything else, more than any other public recognition by anyone. I mean, the fact that we are recognized for a dish, for a sensation or feeling that only lasts like 30 seconds in the best possible scenario, that's very hard. And if you can do that, you really feel proud. What we put in a dish is our creativeness, if you will. Creativeness in the composition and colors. We have a very strong aesthetic sense of aesthetics is really crucial because the dish actually lends itself to that. Well, a lot of people compare what we do with painting. Well, it's only comparable to painting because you have colors and shapes. But what we do is a sort of game. It's something that leads us to play. Everything should be made harmonious and should be proposed in a simple way to the customer. As of today, cooking or offering food or a special type of cuisine is like a story. It tells you about our way of working or transforming the raw material with a view to providing happiness. I don't think I could say more. So that's it.
Grazie, grazie.
Thank you very much, Elio. Carlo Cracco has introduced us into a way of reasoning, which is probably also very close to your experience. You have selected some images, and this is going to be a conversation to hear about what you have done so far. You should tell us about your perception of happiness, how you have interpreted it over the years. Talking about happiness is very challenging and complex because happiness is not just what you consume. There's much more about it. It would take me a very long time to cover the topic. We have the right of pursuing happiness. This is stated in the American Constitution. It's probably the most important right. I believe happiness is something we have within ourselves, something we are searching for without knowing exactly what it is, because we don't know for sure what can make us happy. Sometimes we make new experiences, new feelings, and we are searching for happiness. I come from the countryside, and happiness for me means nature. Something we don't know very well, a real miracle which is surrounding us, and unfortunately our civilization has not respected nature. The life of man has been very difficult. We have started our life as human beings fighting. We were scared. So end of the fear, beginning of love. This is my catchword. In the past generation, there was a prevailing fear. We were fighting with other people, with other tribes, cities, and nations. Now we have mondialism, the whole world. That's incredible. We are scared by that. But it takes us away the opportunity of fighting wars. This will be the beginning of a new era, the era of love. There are many people sitting in this conference room from various countries. We are all here to see something new happen. These great meetings involving many people from different backgrounds setting up a network are really the beginning of a new era, an era where people will love each other according to their individual desires, to their feelings, irrespective of the language or of the country of origin, to promote the well-being, to be happy. And now let me tell you something about my company, my story. I have gone away from Italy. I have happened to be in London in 1965. I have found out that there were other ways of living and thinking back in Milan. I have thought I want to create a place where it's possible to live and think differently from what we are currently doing in Milan. I have called an expert in sculpture to create something new in my store. I want to have items and products, but before them I want love to be present in my store. Selling goods is not my primary need. It's just the consequence of a primary need. The need of having the feeling you're being loved. We need to convey that. That's at the end of the fear. That's at the beginning of love, at the beginning of a new life. I wanted to create a container, a sort of bridge, a sort of a box and container where anything could happen. We were also staging concerts with Mario Del Ponte. They were in the window case, images. I was taking music, songs, and texts from London. There were no commercial radios in those days. I wanted to convey the feeling that this was not just a place where you could buy products. It was a sort of community where you could feel well. This is the need which is also reflected in modern communities. The primary need was to meet other people. This was really a gathering place for people. And what was happening there? There were many people going out saying, good, I felt depressed before getting into the store, and after this experience I was smiling and happy. It's a sort of a therapy place. Why? Because there's much love in it. We're not just there to sell goods. I like to be among people. I'm shy. I'm still shy. I don't like to talk in public. You can probably tell it from my voice. I was very shy, but I have managed to overcome that. I am no longer afraid of other people. I like to be with other people. Here you see more pictures proving that there has been a need to change the approach to other peoples. Look at the way they are dressed, mini skirts, the first mini skirts in London, seeing legs which were always covered by these skirts below the knee was really something revolutionary. Mary Quaint and the invention of the mini skirts, Biba, Barbara Ranici with this new store, and this was Tito Pastori, my left arm. He was in charge of many of the projects that I have developed. And here you see Via Torino. Let me just comment the store in Via Torino, where there was a floor for goods, the underground floor, then there was a restaurant, ground floor, and then there was also a theater at the upper level where we could stage shows, because feeling well means being in a place where you're not just selling goods. It's a way of meeting other people and feeling at ease with them, feeling in harmony. This was the formula which has now become more common. Let's consider Corso Como or Excelsior, where you can eat and buy and experience. This was innovative. It was not everything for everybody. There was a certain segment of consumers. I was obsessed by the idea that we need to be democratic also in fashion. So we had very accessible prices for our goods. So we wanted them to be accessible to everybody. And then also the approach and the behavior of products. This is also a new culture. Funny, revolutionary products, very colorful ones. and you were really perceiving an atmosphere which was not present in other stores in Italy or elsewhere in those years. So you have been a pioneer. You have developed something. You were really 50 years ahead of time. We should give him a round of applause for that. Here you see, this is something incredible and yet simple. Mickey Mouse, which was only used for kids' apparel. We have started using Mickey Mouse on T-shirts for adults. It was a real revolution. Nice-looking women with a nice breast wearing Mickey Mouse shirts. A real revolution. And denim trousers, the revolution of denim. Something very simple and easy to achieve. I loved the denim trousers. There was Levi's, Wrangler, and Lee. At Ibiza, I have seen Levi's worn-out trousers. They had a wearability, which was the wearability of the working uniform. They were not highlighting the bottom of the girth. So since we want to highlight this beauty, this natural beauty of women's body, we have been working on the shape and the model. He was working for Valentino. He was developing models, and he has started working for Fiorucci. This was the challenge. I would like to develop denim trousers highlighting the beauty and the shape of women's bodies. This is a working fabric. It's not the best fabric that you can use. We need to make it softer, and this is how the new denim was born. We have been selling thousands of pieces of these new denim trousers, and it's a phenomenon which has propagated worldwide. And then we have opened another store. Here you see, this is a drawing. I was in New York. I have decided to open a store in central New York on the 59th Avenue, and a very large store. Andrea Branzi was the designer with the success of the store. Franco Marabelli was the third designer. And there we had a real surprise. We thought it was extremely difficult to surprise people in New York. On the contrary, we have seen that everybody was eager to see the new Fiorucci store. Among the very first visitors, we had Andy Warhol writing in his diary, "I've seen Fiorucci new shop, I found everything I like there." And also nice-looking shop assistants. We haven't then become friends, but he was opening when we have opened in Los Angeles, the second store, and he has written very nice words about Fiorucci. Let me just comment by looking at the pictures to explain you what I have been doing. I love plastic. This was developed 30 years ago. It was very pioneering. Then we were very nostalgic about the 40s. This was the cover of a book which was published in the US. We had very creative graphics. And then we have been working with Mendini, Ettore Sozzas, Memphis, the pioneers in architecture. I loved working with people who were brave enough to break away with tradition. This is Alessandro Mendini with this fashion furniture design. Ettore Sozzas. Elio, I'm here turning to be open director. Elio Fiorucci has done alone what you would like to do with $100 million US. This is probably he's probably the most qualified consultant to do that. And then Jordan and the world's actress and model here, these eco leather trousers. I'm an animalist. I'm against using hide and natural leather for garments. This is a nostalgic picture. The American anthology. More posters. Everything was being done with a new mood. Our graphic experts had produced very innovative solutions. They were very talented people. They have become very famous. All of our advertising pictures of the first 20 years were then republished. They have been selling 105 million issues of that. This is the poster advertising for the restaurant in Via Torino, Milan. This is yet another image. I like nice-looking women models and pin-ups. Adriano Celentano. This was the opening of the store, a major event. Manlio Del Ponte was the designer of the new store. It was really something extraordinary. I would like to have a large empty box to contain everything, music, books. And then it was really fantastic talking with Italo Lupi one day. I've told him I would like people to understand that there are also goods, but next to goods we have also got a spirit. I need an icon to reflect that. It's not just about selling, it's about spending time together. One day he came to me with this picture of the two angels, a blonde-haired and a dark-haired angel looking at the sky, searching for something, and they have become so famous. They have been taken out of their sphere to get onto the market on shopping bags, T-shirts. These two angels were to be found everywhere. It was a sort of cross-contamination without being afraid of taking something out of its original sphere, using Mickey Mouse for T-shirts for adults, or the angels, or uncovered naked legs with mini skirts. I was caught in a fantastic revolution with a wonderful tool, a platform, i.e. my store, where I could do anything and contain anything. It was beautiful, it was revolutionary, it was really a breakaway with tradition. Everybody's very nostalgic about it. Here we see Andy Warhol. Then Kit Haring, who has been doing some frescoes and paintings. We have staged so many memorable events. Fundamental is also to mention the importance of love. If you're not afraid of revolutions that are taking place, if you're not afraid of breaking away with the schemes, trade has got its own place, the arts have got their own place, religion has got its own place. In life, we need everything together. This is the spirit of man who can cover all of these spheres, also sacred ones. Sacred ones that you can find in nice books or pictures. I have always tried to do that out of instinct. I have been lucky enough to develop new things. This is the very first time that Madonna was singing. I already knew her. She was a DJ in those days. This is her first concert at Studio 54 in Milan. We were celebrating the anniversary of Fiorucci. It was 1983, 15 years after the foundation in 1967. We would go on listening to you all morning long, but we now have to close. Thank you very much for your very stimulating contribution. all of the Be Open themes. We have touched upon the themes we have been working with the team members over the last few months have been covered by you in a delightful manner. You will accompany us along this journey. Many of the things you have said, and I hand over to Edson Matsuo, who has taken a flight from Brazil for this event. We should give him a warm applause. Edson, as I was telling you, has been directing over the years the design, research and development department of a large Brazilian company. So we take a leap into Brazil, the emerging country by definition, most of all when it comes to creativity and openness. He's going to tell us something which is really an echo of what Elio Fiogucci has told us in their project. Materials, happiness and colors are fundamental. Edson.
Unfortunately, I will speak in English, not in Italian. It's the second lecture that I make here, and it's a shame it doesn't speak Italian here. But anyway, but I will tell about the happiness first. Our presentation is about, I will tell in Italian. Fatto è meglio che perfetto per fare. This is something that we are thinking what's so much important. Okay, thank you for the organization opportunity here. Be open. Gilda Boyard from Interne Magazine, Francesco, Sabrina from Future Concept Lab. Sorry, thank you. Okay, good. Dealing in happiness. Talking about the happen is so much important. Share with you guys about Sorry. Okay, thank you. Thank you. My personal relation with dreams, and talking about dreams, we needed to talk about happiness, and the happiness is dream. Dreams, when we talk about dreams, what I feel is the Akira Kurosawa masterwork, Dreams. This is so much huge concept for what I think about the dreams. This is what the Dreams movie that Akira Kurosawa direct this film, that is Akira yourself, talking with Van Gogh. He have your lifetime dreams in a movie. Okay, and this is my child. When my child is a dream, I don't know if you guys know about National Kid. Is a Superman from Japanese culture in the 60s, and huge challenges. Okay, dreams have no limits, even to be a Le Corbusier. I believe that plastic dreams is only limited by our creativity. And here we will share you guys about my country. Even I have this face, I'm a Brazilian guy, and I was born in Brazil, and I learned a lot of things about this culture. Happiness is living in a multi-ethnic country. It's a country that has different ethnics, sources. These are people. My life as a lifetime taster. This is something that I think a lot. And I begin work with plastic. It's not about I choose the plastic. The plastic chose me. And I arrived in the 80s to design a bicycle after the Spielberg movie E.T. Girls was looking for children, was looking for the girls to ride a bicycle, a BMX bicycle. But that time was just for boys. And the president invited me to design one bicycle for girls with plastic. And this was the challenge to create the new product to the company, because was the final situation after the first boom of Melissa. And accidentally, the president invited me to design shoes. And I didn't know about if you have a right. At that time, in his 80s, I'm sure that I know just the right and the left side of the shoe, the feet. And this was a dream that become now, after 30 years, working with this. Happiness is about sharing too. This is one work, Dream Path project. Nati Lima is a Melissa blogger that he posted about our shows. So about sharing, this is so huge for us. And would you like to share you about the experience at Galleria Melissa, São Paulo? That is another dream that is so much important for us today, and we feel happy with this project. Galleria Melissa is in Oscar Freire Street. It's a campana. Each 3 months we change the front of the space. This is for Choque Cultural. Marcelo Rosenbaum. This was when we launched the Zaha Hadid. This is Jason Wu. So it's the same Galleria, and then we change the front of the Galleria each 3 months. This is a way of creating the new in the scenario of the neighborhood. Eli Sudbach, this guy we invited to work with the Galleria in New York that I will show you. Studio Ivory, people take picture and share with you. This is the blog people, the bloggers. And I will share you one about one YouTube film that had at this morning was 1,001,000 105,000 access. Is about one concept that we work with the Post-it. The concept is high emotion, low tech. Please. Could you, the YouTube, please? No song? Oh, sorry, it's not, no audio. If you guys went to the YouTube, you see the song, you will hear the song. Okay, sorry, thank you. Could you show again, please? Okay, no problem. People share your emotion in a Post-it and leave it. Trying. Okay. So I have a second last month we represent the Galleria Melissa in New York. It's the first Galleria outside the country. Was a challenge and was so interesting the process. And the Galleria, the concept was different from the São Paulo one. São Paulo is a Galleria that's like an arm. Here is like a tattoo, no? That you change and each 3 months, and you go inside the side, the left side, okay? And the Galleria in New York was considered to like a cavern urban. Is more about the protection. So this is front of the Galleria. Is based in Greene in Soho, in Greene Street between Prince and Spring and Prince, okay? In front of the Taschen bookstore. This is inside, but the most important thing here is about the products. Here's the party that you have Jason Wu, Marc Jacobs, Gita Von Teese. And now I will show the film that we will make.
A marca já começou esse processo de internacionalização desde 2004. A gente acredita muito que o mundo hoje está dividido em cidades e não em países. Nova York é um espaço multicultural, multiétnico, é uma cidade cosmopolita e para a gente é muito importante estar presente nesses lugares.
Surgiu uma ideia de trabalhar um abrigo. Dessa palavra abrigo a gente chegou numa caverna urbana.
A Galeria Melissa é uma forma da gente expressar todo o conceito da marca, tudo que a marca tem para transmitir para as nossas fãs.
A gente criou um espaço que tem personalidade por si própria, mas ela não sobrepõe, ela respeita, ela dá oportunidade para que mais artistas, arquitetos, designers possam interferir e somar nessa experiência Melissa.
é que os produtos estão sendo expostos nas formações rochosas que nascem do chão, né? E formam tudo isso, sendo a parte principal desse local é o próprio produto, que é o nosso elo de experiência com os apreciadores da milícia.
A gente fez um plano de divulgação muito grande também nas mídias aqui de Nova York. Não foi nada fácil. Foram 2 anos de trabalho em cima dessa loja. O que a gente mais espera é que todas as consumidoras que entrarem aqui na loja se encantem com esse espaço.
A gente já estava em Nova York e agora é mais do que entrar, eu acho que é uma coroação desse trabalho que a gente já estava desenvolvendo aqui. A Melissa é uma incansável sonhadora, né? Um sonho que a gente sonha sozinho é apenas um sonho, mas um sonho que a gente sonha em conjunto já virou realidade.
Melissa! Welcome, Melissa! Welcome, Melissa, to New York! Melissa! Hi, Melissa!
Welcome to New York, Melissa. I love your shoes.
Okay. And I will share the final part here is what we think a lot. Product is tangible, service intangible, but Black's experience is unforgettable. Nice plastic drink for everybody. Grazie.
Grazie, grazie.
Thank you very much, Edson. I need to say that the first part of this presentation was really so stimulating. Edson from Brazil has really developed a tailor-made presentation for us. We are lucky enough to have the first 2 letters of the formula for success over the last years, from Brazil to Russia, with Vladimir. He has got a family name which sounds quite Italian, like Piroscafo in Italian language. Vladimir Piroshkov will tell us about his experience in a faraway country. Be Open was born thanks to the vision of a Russian entrepreneur, Elena Baturina, the person allowing us to be here today. She has been supported by Gilda Boiardi, chief editor of Interni, who is with us today, who has involved us in this nice adventure. Russia plays a very central role. This country has decided to invest into the future. Let's hear from Vladimir what he does and his project, a new dimension that we haven't covered so far. Who will first introduce the broader topic of transportation, also private transportation and aeronautics. We are eager to listen to him.
And I will speak in English, not in Russian. And maybe it will be a little bit different from what you're expecting, but I think you will enjoy, because the problems which we will talk about, you know, all of you, and we will see what will happen. So the first thing, I would like to introduce you to the concept of innovation, because we are now, it's a very popular word now, innovation. There is 2 things, modernization and innovation. And if you look at the modernization, if you look at modernization, it's always increasing of complexity. And if I will show you this little thing, when I was a kid, I wanted to have one of these. And then things become more complex, and even more complex. And if I will ask you what is this, or what this is, maybe you will think about it. But then things become even more complex. And that's all our life, basically. We are not anymore realizing what is this. Maybe it's a radio, maybe it's a flash card, or whatever. So if you look at the situation, the more complex things or processes are, the less effective they are. So the time is to make things simple. Basically, if we look at this situation, this is the control of complexity. And if we can control it, the complexity, then we are winners. And how we can see this, for example, for our little knife, the control of complexity of the size of the hand. The bigger, if the thing bigger than the hand, it's not knife anymore. So if you look at the modern airplane, it's about 700 kilometers of wiring inside the airplane. So it's like from Moscow to St. Petersburg distance. And in order to certify the A380 airplane, it was 6 years try to understand where the wires are. In the Boeing, it's about 3.5 million certified parts. This is very complex objects. This is the turn on the right in Tokyo. Yeah, and this is our modern cities. And you know how difficult now to orient yourself in the city. If you look on Milan from the bird view, it's a very complicated city. If you go further, this what is the morning situation. Yeah, it's it's a traffic, and we all in it. So we go in more and more complex. This is the shopping mall, and in order to find the trolley, you have to look long time, find €1, and all these kind of problems. So basically, it's the world becoming very complex. So what we can do, and our exit of it, and our solution is innovation. And if you look at this simple thing here, if we go progress, 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 and one moment when we control the complexity and not going even more complex, we can jump on another physical systems. For example, if you look at this thing, guess what is it? You think it's a sewing machine. Yeah, maybe, maybe not. But it's the very first sewing machine from Singer. This is modernization of this machine. It's about 50 years between first and second one. This is the modernization. But this is already not very good because it's electricity one. If I go back, this one works on the bread and the meat. If I eat, I can turn. You know, so if this thing, if it no electricity, no work, sorry. This is super complex sewing machine with a satellite control, with a worm in the seat, with the music and everything in it. But maybe it's not necessary anymore because nobody using it anymore. So basically, this is too complex. But this is innovation. That's what we call innovation if we start from the, I don't know the name of this little thing, but what is that? Thimble. So if the thimble has nano surface, super complex and very, very expensive thimble, it's not at all as a very first sewing machine. Basically, this is the jump I'm talking about here. And this is 100 years of progress, of modernization, and we have about 20% of effectiveness in the 100 years of time. So we're driving cars now, and we think we are cool, but maybe not. Maybe not. So innovation is this. This horse may be much more expensive than 100 of these tractors, because it's very race horse. But tractors are more effective, sorry. This is 100 years of modernization, and about 20% of effectiveness. The color is the same, but all the rest, it's also the same. No difference. So if you look at the first Ford car, Ford T car, the very old one, 100 years ago, it's about exactly the same as a Bentley now. It's a 4 wheels, it's a steering wheel, we are sitting on the right or on the left, depends on the country, but nothing changed. We can talk about innovations as much as we want, but countries are investing different money in it. And if you look at the national product, this is the size of national product. This is R&D investments. Well, about design I'm not talking because different countries having different things. But if we compare, for example, America and Russia, it's a very different investments in innovation. So our choice in Russia, because I'm from there, and our choice is only innovation. We cannot modernize things because America and Japan and France going very fast forward, we have to catch up. So our choice is between progress or innovation. We chose innovation. I will go quick here, it's not so important, blah, blah, blah. Very quick from our background. I used to work as a car designer, and maybe some of the cars here you will recognize. It was a team which we were working together. And before I was working at Citroën, and after, as we all grow, we go on the bigger companies. And I went to Toyota, doing Lexuses, Toyotas, and blah, 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 and different cars, so many. And you can do cars for all your life, doing 20, 40, 100 cars, and that's all cars we were participated in. I will go very quick. And in the end of the day, I asked myself, what am I doing? I'm doing another car, another car, another car. Finally, we end up with a choice. I can do another 100 cars, or I can do something different for the human being. And there we go to the question of happiness. For example, you are working every day on the company, you go in there and you say like, I'm doing car, it's cool, it's really a dream, I'm car designer, really like happy job. But in the end of the day, you say like, am I happy? And I say, maybe not anymore, because I'm doing another car. And you may be doing another shoe, or I don't know, something exactly the same what yesterday. So for myself, I choose to go innovation way. And we started to work with aerospace industry. These things are very simple, and these things are kind of also modernization way. It's very quick. This is the job we were doing. Helicopters, airplanes, but they are always the same. And this is some kind of like blah, blah, blah. This is interesting thing. We started to think about the future, and in Russia we have a very serious situation with the Arctic North Sea. And very soon, when the ice will melt, we will have a highway between North Europe and North America. This highway is very cool because it's about 7,000 nautic miles shorter than Suez Channel way and has no pirates, which is very important for modern world. So, but at the same time, we realize that in this area we have no infrastructure at all. So we need a very heavy helicopters who can carry huge carriages of the weight to support this infrastructure. This is interesting development of the idea how to make this area is very interesting because, for example, if you look at any kind of flying machines, you have to understand it should be very light. Otherwise, we have no chance to lift it up. So to make things lighter than it is now, we are going into the composite materials with a helium filling inside. So you go helium inside instead of oxygen, and then the wings and anything which machine made of, it's becoming super light, and then you will have smaller engines and maybe electrical engines, which is very important for our world at the moment. We also worked on a very interesting project because there are two countries which are very powerful in space research. It's America and Russia. And in Russia, we were always flying with very old machines. Now we are going next generation spacecraft. We were working on it. And that's very quick. It's just to show how the job was done. And we were doing interior of next spacecraft. This is the machine. It's a huge one. Sorry, maybe it's not about happiness, but it's about necessity. And it's the next 50 years of space research. And this is the next project we are working on. This is the spacecrafts which are going into the space without launch pads, which is, you don't have to start from the point, which is vulnerable. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. This is cool. This is the Mars station. We are thinking now about our flight to mission Mars. And we are working on interior of the Mars space station, and this is our project at the moment. But the very cool project which I want to tell you, and I will be very quick, I will try to, because since 120 years we are using cars, and we were so happy when we went from horses to cars, and it happened in 10 years. When the Daimler and I don't remember the guy who created the engine, they made a new vehicle which moves without horse, people accepted it. And it was in something about like 10, 20 years, we forgot about horses. Try to find a magazine now about horses, maybe impossible. And we were using horse as a moving device for 100,000 years. So we get rid of horses very quick. Now is the next step, and this is the question of how the world changing. If you look at the navigation, it was like this. It was analog navigation. Now we go in a digital. And some girl telling you turn on the right or turn on the left, and I don't care who is the girl, and I don't care how it's made of, what is made of. So it's just comfortable, it's cool. We go into the network systems. And the same thing happened with the telephone. 20 years ago, nobody even imagined that we will call from here to New York so easily, and we have also a TV set inside, and we have a radio, and we have anything what you imagine here. And this is impossible to think. So now we are there, and we don't imagine how we were not using it before. How happened? Also internet, very cool thing, which we cannot live without at the moment. But in the transportation, we are still sticked to the roads. And the roads are very simple. You have Milano-Como, and that's a problem. Because everybody stands in Milano-Como. And if you want to say off-road, impossible. Because there is a building, there is a factory, there is a... I will show you what is it in Russia. Maybe you will be enjoying. So basically we are fixed to the wire of the road. And where the road is, you can go. There is no road, no go. At the same time, we have a three-dimensional transportation, but it's super complicated. If you go to the airport, you have to spend about 4 hours driving there, again, Milano, Como, and, and after you have to undress, dress, undress, especially in America, and I don't know why. In Russia, in 2008, before the crisis, we spent about $70 billion on the cars. That's a huge amount of money. It's huge. And at the same time, we have situation in Siberia, something like this, and we call it roads. Maybe not. Maybe off-road even doesn't work. So on the north of our country, we have this type of situation. Maybe it's not like in Italy or in Germany, which is infrastructural country, small countries. But we are huge, and we have such waste territories, impossible. At the same time, in the city, this is Moscow, by the way, and this is somewhere next to New York. It's a common situation in the world. We are stuck in the traffic jam, basically. Can we have a little bit of sound, please? Yeah, not so much, yeah, it's cool. This is the grass cutting machine. You take grass cutting machine and making this. That's how people decide to go 3D, personally. And this is cool. I think it's very cool. But this is grass cutting machine. In the morning, we do this. Very cheap. And I believe you can fly over the river. And if you can fly over the river, it means you don't need a bridge and road. This is cool. Certain years in America, they were doing experiments about it, and super expensive machines. So what we are doing now, after so many years of car design, I say no cars anymore. Forget it. Stupid. We are stuck with the cars. So we are working on a very strange object, which looks like airplane, but it's not. And this is a car, basically. This is the personal vehicle for 4 people, with the price of the car. Basically, you have all-in-one. It's a speed and range of the good, expensive airplane. You have vertical takeoff and landing from the point, which is very good. You have a price and comfort of the car, and you have multi-fuel engine. You can put anything which burns inside for the moment. But next step, it will be hybrid and electrical. It will be assembled in an assembling line. The price will be about this. For the moment, it's expensive, but if you remember the first mobile phones, they were also big and expensive, and it was only 10 years ago. Now you can get it for free because it's necessity, and it's inevitable. And this one is inevitable too. Maybe we will be not the first ones because everybody working on it now, but we already found the engine for it, and this engine is a diesel. So basically, on every fuel station in the world, you can fill it up. The cool thing about it, it's very quick. It's about 500 kilometers an hour. That's about 8 kilometers height, the ceiling. It's about 2,000 kilometers range. You can fly really far away. And it's about 5 people and 300 kilos you take with you, like a normal car. So this is how it looks like. For the moment, it's the very first mobile phone. Sorry, it's the very first black one. So don't worry. In 10 years, it will be very, very different. It's a robot. It's a drone. You don't need to really drive it. It will be driven by different sources. You have a safety and security, of course, because we're always afraid what will happen with us. So we are very, very conscious. You can get personal credit in the bank. Go and buy just like a car. It's a multi-weather system. And of course, you need infrastructure for that. The very first thing to do is to make it unmanned. So it's a robot. You don't have to control it. At the same time, if you look at these kids, they're not going to the school. They're really naughty guys, But at the same time, if you give them a profession of the pilot, maybe this is the very interesting profession, and this guy can earn more than his father, who works as a computer engineer. But this is the most interesting thing. If you look at these things, this is amazing, how the birds and how the fish can do that. I always asking myself how the fish doesn't, collapse in a 3D environment, how the birds don't collapse in 3D environment. And the bottom thing here, it's next to Nice in south of France. Before the birds flying over the Mediterranean, they're doing this exercise. Amazing, amazing. And I was thinking how to do this. And that's how to do this. If you see this, here's a Fifth Element story. But a little bit louder, please. This is robots. It will be James Bond movie music by robots. I love the end of it. So the aim of our team is to make a device where you can fly anytime, anywhere, and that's another part of freedom. When we got a mobile phone, we got a super freedom. Now we can do anything from every cafe, you can call any car. This is very cool and amazing, and we don't realize how cool is it. This is the next type of freedom when we can transport ourselves. I'm bringing you back to this little situation. Try to imagine for yourself on your place what you can do like this. What you can do as an innovation, not modernization, because every day we are going to work and doing our Toyota. I was doing Toyota 20 years, and I fed up with it because it's just another car in the traffic jam. You know, so any new car you see in the shop, it's just another car in the traffic jam. So my breakthrough and my happiness and my attitude to life changed. So we are going this direction, and basically we are creating our little world, and we want to see it this way. Thank you very much.
Grazie.
Thank you very much, Vladimir. Well, we often talk about stereotypes and countries. Well, I think that his presentation was wonderfully Russian. Robert's spacecraft, really wonderful. He really gave us a different viewpoint, an unexpected one. Now the time has come that many of you were waiting for. Our special guest will now take the floor. Let me invite Julian Schnabel. He's now on the phone, but please, if you would join us on stage. By the way, Julian was one of the most attentive listeners from the very first day. He participated in all activities, and as all artists of his level, he has not anticipated what he's going to talk about, so we're all looking forward to listening to what he's going to say. Thank you, Julian.
Buongiorno. I thought that was great. Bello che lui ha fatto. And I guess happiness has to do with how you get through the day, what you need to do to just get through the day. I brought some images of that we'll look at, and then we'll talk about why I'm here. This image is from 1981, and I'm standing next to a painting that I was working on the beach. That's a picture of the same painting attached to the house on the beach. So I was trying to get back from it. Lots of times when people are working, or young artists, they're always complaining that they don't have enough space in their studio. They can't see what they're doing. I suggest they go outside and paint outside. They can get back further. They can use daylight. In 1978, I made a painting called The Patients and the Doctors. It's a painting with broken dishes that are glued on the surface, and I was looking for a way to make a painting that I hadn't seen before. I was in a hotel room in Barcelona. I measured the closet, and then I thought, okay, I'll go home, and I bought some plates at the Salvation Army, broke them with a hammer and glued them down, and then drew some images on top of that. That's a little drawing for the painting. That was in 1978. And these are some panels of paintings with broken dishes on them before I painted on them. So they're just like blank panels, but they kind of look like leaves or like nature in some way. I like to paint outside. This is a sculpture of mine. It's in the Alps. but it's a palm tree that's cast in bronze. It was from about 20 years ago. On the other side, you can't really see it, but it says, "I went to Tangiers and had dinner with Paul Bowles." I like the idea of taking something that was from a tropical setting and placing it in a glacial setting. There were 18 sculptures that were put on the Chantarella in San Moritz on a precipice out there that was left there for a winter. I think a lot of things have to do with displacement and looking at things in another context and realizing, I think these things will become more evident as I get to the end of these images. So, for example, here are some vases that I found in Tuscany. They were fake Etruscan vases that were in a hardware store. In a hardware store, in decorative vases in a hardware store. So I cast them in bronze again, and I made them real again, and made a sculpture where I stacked them on top of each other. That's it's good. A little bit of life.
A fermento, student ferment.
Maybe they should come in.
Maybe. We will see.
Okay.
No problem. We are open anyway.
Okay, we're open. This is a bed that was made about 20 years ago. I think this is a bed I actually made for Gianni Versace. It's made out of bronze, and it's hot-rolled steel. Now, a lot of the things that people have been talking about are made for maybe mass consumption or to produce, but all of the things that I made are one of a kind, or I made the bed for a friend of mine, or they're handmade. This is a house that Addison Meisner designed in the early part of the 20th century in Florida. Was inspired by Italian and Moroccan architecture. This is a house probably that looked like that before it was destroyed. And when I was in Egypt, I bought some sails from the felucca sailors, and I thought, why should I make paintings out of rectangles, make them into rectangles when they had these incredible shapes that were the shapes of the sails? So one of the boats was called Jane. So the first notion that came to my mind was Birkin. So I called these the Jane Birkin paintings because I felt like that was a way of colloquializing Egypt. But you could kind of see the scale of the paintings. This used to be the ballroom of a man's house called Robert de Balcony. And then here the same paintings that are transposed to another space. This is in the Palazzo Venezia in Rome. And so the notion of time is something that's very important to me. I don't see that we're going anywhere necessarily into the future. I think that there is no future, and I think that there's no past. I think there's just an eternal present, and that we live eternally. It can get augmented in different ways as the eternity changes, but when I was a child, my father was driving to my aunt's house, and I would see these telephone poles. And then we'd pass them, and they would be behind us, and I'd say, well, that's the future, that's the past, that's the future, that's the past. Well, I never existed because I was in the car. So what I needed to do was stop time, so I started to make paintings in order to make the present that I could revisit. I think if you see a Caravaggio painting, you in the present of that when you see it. If you saw The Bicycle Thief today and you never saw it before, you'd see it for the first time. If you saw it 3 times, you'd still see it for the first time because you'd be seeing it in your present. So, for example, this is a monastery from 1492 that was in Seville. It was first a church, and then later it became a barracks for the army. So I left everything in the monastery, but I made some paintings and I put them on the walls. 24 Stations of the Cross instead of 14 stations. That's a painting called Cortez and another one called Blessed Clara. So obviously travel is something that's has been very important to me. This is, there was a hole on the wall there. I hung the painting, The Teddy Bear's Picnic, in that wall without repainting it, without changing it, and you'd walk from one room to the next. Somehow I guess we lost that picture of Cortez. Bart, it's the wrong PDF? Doesn't matter. This is a house that Stanford White built in 1882. And I live in that house in the country. I paint out there also. That's the interior of the house, and there's a painting by Jacopo Vignelli from, I think it's 1690. There's also a little painting of a found girl, probably painted by her mother. I put a purple line through her eyes and a purple shape at the bottom, and later used it as a model to make some larger paintings. Maybe we'll see one of them later. But my father once asked me why I painted the girl's eyes out, and I said to him, so you'd look at her chin. I don't know how many people speak English here. Should I be talking in Italian? This is another image of the house. And those are 2 paintings that say, Regarde mes pieds plats, which means look at my flat feet, that are purple and green. Okay. This is a house that I built. It's a studio and a clubhouse, so I could take the paintings inside. I work outside, and this is just okay, that's the inside of the house. So it looks quite old. It's made with live edge and white cement and straw. I made the fireplace, and the paintings that are inside I made also, and the tile. So sometimes somebody will say, is this house post-war? And I'd say, yeah. The painting itself looks like it's made in the 17th century, except there's some white paint painted on it. I was once at Giovanni Volpe's house in Venice, and he had all these paintings of procurators in his house that were family members, and all I wanted to do was put white paint on them, but obviously I couldn't destroy the paintings in his house, so I made my own antique paintings and then painted the white on them. This is another picture of the inside of that building. Some surfboards, actually, that I designed. Some I didn't, but I make surfboards also. Made that couch with a Sawzall and a screw gun. And then I designed this building and literally built the building in New York City. I made a Venetian palazzo on top of my building. And it's basically 2 other people live in the building with me. And it's interesting because I think that you had a very excellent point that we didn't get very far with the sewing machine. A lot of people have forgot the basic ways of working with stucco. We have 4x8 sheets of plywood that are standardized, so we have very boring kind of rooms that people live in, and people are very accepting of those things because buildings get built quickly, so they can make money. But I guess one thing that I've never tried to do is make money, and maybe that's good, because if I did, the things wouldn't look the same. So anyway, I live in this building. And one thing that I really don't like, and what I kind of, I look around and I see all these glass buildings globally all over, whether you're in New York City or you're in Hong Kong or you're in Milan. If you're driving downtown, it looks like the Pennzoil building in Houston, Texas. So there's a kind of generic homogeneity that's creeping globally all around, and people are using materials like glass in an extremely accepting way that I find extremely generic, innocuous, and boring. So I guess I made this building to pull the landscape of New York back a couple of rewind a little bit, because this building looks older than the buildings that are in the neighborhood. This is inside the building. Some paintings of mine. I made the fireplaces, the floor, ceilings, and basically I think if I'm here because it has anything to do with being happy daily, I live in that house. I live in these places. I work in the way that I want to work, and I've been lucky enough to have an access to this door where I could paint things that are beyond logic, that have no reason other than the fact that I want to paint them. So that painting you see on the left is a finger painting that I painted from the little painting you saw in the other house, the found painting that somebody's mother probably made. So this is the part of my living room. And then that's another floor in the building with another fireplace and some paintings that are painted on X-rays. So in 1911, there was I direct movies sometimes also, and I made a movie called The Diving Bell and the Butterfly. And I finished shooting about 10 days early, so we needed another location. There was a lady whose grandfather was a doctor, and they left him an incredible house. They asked if I wanted to shoot there, and I went to that house and found all these X-rays from 1911, which was the year my father was born, and I thought they looked like paintings to me. So I did the credits with those X-rays, and later I made them into paintings. So I see paintings everywhere. Actually, that's a new painting that I painted about 2 weeks ago. It's a pity to look at it on that screen. You might see it better up there. So, for example, let's talk about that for a minute, and let's talk about time. Okay, in 1850, there's Dufour wallpaper of George Washington accepting Cornwallis's surrender for the freedom of the United States. So they think that there's something going on here. There was a goat that I had, a stuffed goat, in my office with a bunny rabbit on his head. So I put the image of the rabbit and the goat on top of George Washington and Cornwallis. And then after painting outside for many years, it's a habit I have, so I put ink on here and I took a hose, and with the hose I modified the way the ink dried so it looks like these crazy clouds. These people that are surrendering or winning have no idea what the future brings or what reality is really there. And Muhammad Ali once said, he called something the goat, which was greatest of all time. I think that was just a coincidence that I found this goat. But I was very satisfied with the way that, let's see if I go back, there's another one of those pictures, of the way the goat became the protagonist and some sort of, I think the goat probably has to do with eternity in some way. There's a great book that I suggest that everybody read. It's called In the Hand of Dante by Nick Tosh. And if you have any questions about eternity, God, yourself, your own dignity, whatever your possibilities are, he might answer those questions for you. And gangsters also. These are some drawings I made for my second wife, and I made that fireplace also. This was on the 6th floor of the building. Here's a chair that I made the other day. It's made out of bronze. That was the drawing for the chair. So essentially I took the, I made it out of wood and clay, and then I cast it in bronze and put this little trim on it with the little, what are they, pom-poms and this velvet, and I hand-painted it. And that's a painting from about 20 years ago on a felucca sale. I think that's all of the images. Yeah, okay, so we could turn that, let's find an image. We'll stay with this one. So I look at things and I find that there's, I look at, say, this pattern over here. Okay, I'm like looking at this pattern over here, this black and white pattern. I don't know who designed it, but it looks like a Nieli Toroni painting to me. I look at things, I see things everywhere, and it looks like things that I saw somewhere else, just sort of rehashed in some way. I think that there's something that's extremely accepting that people are doing. We're living in a society where it's not who did it first, but it's who did it last. There's a kind of myopia that we're going through, and people are conforming in a way that I find useless. Maybe it works for other people, I don't know, but I have a hard time with it, so I have to build my own reality. And maybe that's the whole premise, or why I might be here, that somebody, and maybe everybody that's on this panel has done that in some way, just try to build their own reality where they could sit in a room where the light is not too bright, or they could control the sound of where they live, and maybe just offer another possibility of everything that I think I did. The house that I wanted to build was, they try to stop me from doing that. I think people try to stop you all the time from making art. They'll offer you something to make a movie for less money than you could do it for, and then you have to learn how to say no, as much as you have to learn how to say yes. But I think that I don't know if there's any reason for me to be here, in fact. But I was extremely happy to see, well, what's your first name? Vladimir, is it? What he was thinking and what he was doing, because there's two ways of doing something. There's one way of going out into the world and doing something that could be useful in some kind of way. And then there's another way of looking at the world, and you look into your corner. And you're just looking into that corner, and in that corner you could find something that could open another kind of world for other people if they could kind of look into that corner also. So I think that there are different permutations of life. I do it one foot behind the next, but I do it by myself. And so I was asked some questions today. I've never tried to produce or mass market any of the things that, any of the furniture that I've made or any of those things. It just felt like if I built it a specific way and built it the way that I liked it for myself, that it would be okay for somebody else. Anyway, thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Julian. A wonderful indication. Being open to the future, to innovation, doesn't necessarily involve one approach. There are people who move out into the world to observe, and others who prefer to stay inside, and from an interior angle they can come up with new visions. And this is what the arts have always been doing, and it can be a lesson to us. Let me just add something about our professional activity. We move away from a time when being professional meant abandoning our own personality, not living in the first person person, but in a sort of a third predefined person. In the new world we are trying to design for the future, we are all central players in the first person, and the arts can teach us a lot. I know Alberto Alessi has joined us. Here he is. We are very glad he could join us. Without any further ado, we would like to invite here on the stage for his contribution our second special guest. You are all special guests today. When we first contacted Alberto Alessi for this day, he has proposed me something very fascinating. He wanted to talk about Alessi happiness, how through the things that they have designed over the years, the concept of happiness emerges.
I
would like to apologize for the delay. Driving from Aorta Lake is probably more challenging than taking a flight from Brazil. What I'm going to tell you today is about a different word, the word you have heard about, a word of small home objects, which has always been my sphere, the sphere of the company that I manage. Let me just start with the family, because we are still a family business with all the pros and cons this brings about. Here you see my father, the uncle, the brothers, the cousins, all the people I have been working and reckoning with. This is the valley on the Aorta Lake, about 100 kilometers north of Milan. In this valley, about 300 years ago, we have started producing wooden and metal objects, home object and cooking items. Here you see some images of this traditional valley. It's still very traditional today. These are typical products from the valley, where also wooden statues of Pinocchio are being produced, despite the Chinese cheap copies, and then the two grandfathers who would both come from this tradition of the valley. This is the father of my mother, Alfonso Bialetti, who first designed this coffee machine, a very popular one, and the other grandfather, the Alessi grandfather, who set up the company in 1981. He looks 1921. Here you see other pictures, the objects that I have been designing. When we talk about design, well, Carlo, my father, has designed most of Alessi objects in the 30s. Here you see my father, who looks very proud of his last project for Alessi. It's a tea and coffee set, Bombay. It's still being produced today. And then in the 50s, my father, according to the tradition of the small factories producing design in Italy, has invited foreign architects and designers to cooperate with him. These are among the first objects developed in the 50s. That's me. It's a highly symbolic picture. My destiny was to work within the company, within this teapot. Well, at least in the 70s, when we were actually designing homeware, we were perceived as capitalists. I have thought of being provocative and innovative to see whether I could change the situation and make my business, my sector funnier. So we have Alessi d'après. This was a first project. The idea was to use the machines in our factory not not so much to produce boring trays, tea sets or coffee sets, but rather to create real works of art. Not so much conceived by designers or architects, but rather created by artists. So the only difference being that they would be produced using industrial molds and machines in mass with a mass production, not in not as limited editions. So the idea of the art for everybody. They were being sold at a market price in 71. Within a few months, we have clarified that this object would be a major flop. My first flop. People were not keen on buying these objects, so my father has stopped me, has not encouraged me in having a very large collection of these useless items. So I couldn't start producing Salvador Dali's copies. He had designed this object, Orgère Netil. It was a vase about a negative typology. Here you see, it's a sort of replica of it. Here you see. This is a replica of Dali, the art multiples. Here you see it's gold-plated. And there were hooks which were being used to go fishing for salmons. So it was quite a dangerous object. Here you see Salvador Dali was explaining to me, I was very young, how important these hooks, these fishing hooks were. I couldn't launch the mass production of this object. My father has stopped me, but I have nevertheless managed to buy 50,000 such fishing hooks from a specialist in Oslo. We have still got these fishing hooks in the warehouse. I have been working with various authors, but nobody could recycle these 50,000 fishing hooks. At a certain point in time, I was really amused, but the older managers of Alessi were a bit upset. They were concerned. My Uncle Ettore was really concerned. He has always been a very strict person. In the 70s, I was very lucky. I had the opportunity of starting to work with the great masters of Italian design. First, Ettore Sozzos. Here you see, and then Richard Sapper, designer of the first coffee machine produced by Alessi in the new generation. This is something I need to tell you because it's quite typical. We are having a lot of fun. Take your time. It's a typical project. It reflects the way Italian designers work. There are small workshops which since the 50s have started working with great Italian and international design talents. This was the first water boiler produced. I have thought that Sapper, the first kettle, I have thought he could be the right designer. He has accepted, but he has asked, he wanted to design a special kettle, not just a nice-looking one. He wanted to create a multisensorial kettle, appealing to many senses, not something to be touched and seen. And so I've told him why not, but his intention was to design a kettle which, when water boils, would start singing, producing a nice melody. So instead of triggering an alarm, as it was the case with conventional kettles, music was supposed to be produced when water would reach a boiling temperature. And this music should reproduce his childhood in Stuttgart, in a small village. There was a steamboat who would just pass along the river producing this nice music, and he wanted to evoke this music. To make it short, after about 5 years, my technicians were still struggling to find out a way to make the designer happy. So the project was set aside. We had to focus on something else. But after about 18 months or so, one of the sisters of Sapper, who live in Germany, happened to find in the Black Forest a small handcraftsman working for wooden furniture. Here we have these small tubes or pipes. They are being used to play. At the beginning of the concert, they set the tone. This is how you use these music tubes, this diapason. After discussing with this person from the Black Forest, it's not easy for them to change their mind. He was convinced to produce 2 special versions with different musical notes, La and Si. So, placed here, when water boils, these 2 whistles, these 2 tubes would produce a nice melody. And now I have to show you something. This is it. This is the small whistle. Here we have these, inside we have these small tubes.
Questo è il Mi, adesso il Si. Oddio, non funziona. Non funziona. Come vedete, poi abbiamo prodotto l'oggetto che è diventato uno dei prodotti più importanti della Lesi, è ancora in produzione oggi, grande successo anche commerciale, ma con qualche problema funzionale. Cosa succede? Siccome questi benedetti coristi non erano stati creati con lo scopo di essere messi dentro in un fischietto di bollitore, può succedere che a seconda del tipo di acqua che uno ha in casa, dopo qualche mese si ossidano e quindi non funzionano più. Cioè, la funzione materialistica, che è quella di bollire l'acqua, è sempre lì, ma la funzione più importante, secondo Sapper, e sono d'accordo anch'io, che è quella di produrre un po' di gioia, un po' di godimento musicale, non c'è più. In ogni caso, noi mettiamo in ogni scatola 2 doppi coristi che sono facilissimi da togliere. Cioè, se avete una penna si può schiacciare fuori uno e mettere dentro l'altro. È la prima volta che non mi funziona un corista, giuro. Adesso però vado alla fine. Achille Castiglioni è un altro grande maestro da cui ognuno di questi grandi architetti ha lasciato un'impronta molto forte sulla pratica complessiva dell'azienda. Questo è successo per noi della Lesi, ma anche per tutti i miei colleghi delle fabbriche del design italiano. Il quarto maestro è Alessandro Mendini, il quale di fatto è il designer più vicino a me, è quello con il quale lancio e sviluppo i progetti.
He's the designer who works closest to me. This is the Alexophone. The Alexophone is a saxophone that we developed together with 2 consultants who are experts in saxophones. This is the most expensive saxophone in the world. It's all handmade. It was made on the Orta Lake, where there is a tradition, a 200-year-long tradition with saxophone manufacturing. Alessandro Mendini has always been very proud of being considered a designer of something that doesn't sell. So what he designs is too sophisticated for common people, which is absolutely true. With my cooperation, what is sure is that 15 years ago we created Anna G, which was our bestseller product for many years. And that's it. After a few years, this lady felt lonely. Anna felt lonely, and so we decided to find a fiancé. We found Sandro N. They have been living together ever since. Very often people buy two corkscrews, and Sandro M is also sold in different versions, with limited editions, as you can see here. This is from the 80s. I realized that I'm a bit late. Aldo Rossi. Aldo Rossi was one of the three people who most represented the 1980s for Alessi. He was obsessed with coffee machines, as you can see. Aldo died in 1997. This is his last project for Alessi. It's a pan called Cubica, cubic-shaped, literally. It represents the last tribute by Aldo Rossi to the functionist motto, form follows function. It's the ideal pan to cook cubic tomatoes. The second great talent of the 80s is Michael Graves, who designed the kettle. He also invented Twitter. That's Twitter, the cap. The icon of Twitter is the cap. And then this image introduces Philippe Starck, a French designer. You can see a picture from the mid-80s when I met him for the first time. This is a picture of today. It's a miracle. It shows that time goes by, but not similarly for everyone. Look when he was younger, and look at how he looks today, maybe with some aid. And then designing is a very good profession. It does you good. Starck is also funny when he invents the names for his objects. This is called Juicy Salive. And this is the project, the design. This is a kitchen strainer. It's called the Max Le Chinois. This is a famous kettle that never works, by the way. It's called Hot Berta. This is a cheese box with a cheese grating device called Mr. Meu Meu. And this is again a picture of Philip. Here we have some theory, but I will spare you the trouble. I just wanted to tell you something about one of the most entertaining, the funniest projects. Sorry if I scroll quickly through the slides. Representing my history, by the way. These are prototypes. This is a real product. The product is the bracelet that you see worn by the model. One is white and the other one is black. The project of the Eco Vase, developed with Enzo Mari, another master designer from Italy. For years now, it was the beginning of the 1990s, Enzo Mari insisted that we had to test our social sensitivity, our environmental sensitivity. He said that Alessi had to manufacture his own flower vase, designed by Mari, done with recycled plastic bottles. We worked on it for a while, but in the end, picking up all the used plastic bottles, wash them, cut them according to the master's instructions, put them in the packaging, the production cost would lead to an exorbitant retail price, and people would not be willing to pay for that price. But in the end, I convinced Enzo Mari to change his position. They also looked good. In this case, the real product, in my opinion, was the instruction book, which we manufactured and sold for years. I have one in my pocket, by the way. That's it. The graphics is very good. It was designed by Mari. In this booklet, there are handmade drawings made by Enzo Mari. They explain how you can produce your own vase starting from your own plastic bottles. There's also a beautiful label. Once you finish your self-production project, you can put it on your vase, and that testifies that it is an original product by Alessi, designed by Mari.
Mi rendo conto che l'intervento.
I realize that my presentation has been a bit patchy. I had many more stories to share with you, but unfortunately I was late coming here. I may close my presentation by saying, well, I have had a lot of fun so far, but it was really hard. It was damn hard to get to this point. Thank you.
Grazie, Alberto.
Thank you very much, Alberto. I think that what we said yesterday and especially today are really tangible. These are success stories, and what Alberto said, many others would not share. Maybe they cannot, maybe you shouldn't do it according to marketing manuals. There are strategies. Well, most of success stories, at least Italian success stories, what Alberto called the Italian factories of designs, that's the way they originated, from a spark generated by encounters with people and the happiness that you feel doing these things. I announced a short presentation by Giulia Tacchini. She is not the niece of Alberto Tacchini. She's an assistant of food design for the Polytechnics of Milan. She will talk about an initiative, a project, because it's important to remind you that Be Open, the Foundation Be Open, is very much interested in giving space, energy and resources to the young generations and creative people from all areas. So we thought it was important today to leave some space to this project because we are talking about happiness. Thank you very much. Good morning. Today I'm here to present the food design course held by Simonetti at the Polytechnic of Milan. Food design is the design of food actions in our course. That is design that interacts with raw materials, subject matters like anthropology, history, and social studies, and it interacts with something that has always been part of our history, that is food. During the lessons, in addition to the theoretical part, where we teach what food design is, and we have lessons devoted to specific themes, but part of the lessons is devoted to students, and we do exercises or drills. Exercises allow students to have fun, and they are free to interpret special recipes, so to speak, on the topic discussed during the lesson. Talking about daily and happy today, we decided to offer as an exercise bread at the beginning of its history. Bread is on everybody's table. It's food that joins people, and it's part of the history of mankind. In the Neolithic, people living in Egypt had a lot of grains available. They learned to recognize them and to transform them into loaves and bread in general. Today we can say that mankind immediately discovered the value of grains, and they used it in order to improve quality. The finding of bread remains is rare because of its very nature. What you see on the picture, well, there was an exceptional discovery in 1976 in Lithuania, in a Neolithic station. They found a loaf of bread, which proves that since the fourth millennium, in Europe, we produced bread made of wheat and grains. What is important to stress here is that the first to develop an art of bakery were the Greeks. They produced more than 70 different types of bread, and they introduced the meal before the 4th century. What is important is that in the Greek culture, what rotates around food choice is coded through a complex system of signs and symbols, which identify the Greek model of life. To differentiate themselves from the barbarians, the Greeks defined themselves as bread eaters. So bread is linked to rituals and traditions, to the collection of grains, to seasons, and to the passing of time. The words linked to bread, like daily and food accompanying bread. Bread can be one of those foods that is part of our history, as is preserved also in memory, and sometimes they become part of a routine. These are pictures from the exercises. They baked bread as they used to do in the Neolithic era. The exercise consisted in grinding wheat to obtain flour, that they had to create yeast from the fermentation of this flour. And once you do the dough, the special baking system is important. There was no oven at that time in the Neolithic era. The dough was baked on a round-shaped stone taken from the river. It was first heated up in the fire and then used to bake bread. That's why you see that stone inside the bread loaf. Some of the students actually brought their bread that they did during the exercising period. It's bread the way it used to be baked in the Neolithic era. That's it. Thank you very much.
This idea dating back to the Neolithic age is really fascinating. Looking at the future, being open to the future, looking back at our history with a deeper knowledge is extremely important. You shouldn't leave. Now we have a very important moment for Be Open. Gennady, the director, is invited here on stage, where there will be the award ceremony for the Be Open Award. A very important completion of our project, Be Open, and with Elena Baturina.
Hi, Elena. Next time with us, please. And I switch my language because this was forecasted. Please, Gennady.
Gennady, please.
Follow the 10 finalists, because the Be Open Award is organized with 2 jury. The first jury selecting the 10 finalists, and then we have 3 special prizes and another 1 special prize. So we can follow the 10 projects, and then we can give the prize to the winners. Gennady, you want to join something? Please.
Пожалуй, скажу коротко по-русски. Ставя своей целью выработать решение будущего.
It's very important to develop a solution which is feasible today. At the beginning, we wanted to select contemporary experts, but then we have decided to undertake an additional effort. Elena Baturina has said we need to give young talents the opportunity to emerge and present and showcase their work. These conferences will be held in Milan, London, and in the United States, and now we will have the award ceremony. The prizes have been selected by yesterday, today speakers. They have selected the winners of the award today. Now I invite you to take a while and look at the works of the projects which have been submitted, and then we will have the closing award ceremony.
Ecco, importante aggiungere perché non c'è.
Very important to add that there is no sound. These are the 10 finalists in 5 categories where we have organized the prize. We have the form category, the urban category, a project on the city, and then the icon category, the image from an iconic viewpoint, the strongest image, and then a plus category, a special category with a special prize. These are the 10 projects. This is the icon category and the cast category relating to communication aspects. Good. Now the people who have been appointed can come here on the stage. Let me just call them. The winner in the plus category cannot attend today. We're sorry about that. He's Peter Zarnov, winner in the plus category, who will collect the award later. The winner for the third prize is Mikael Robrewski from Poland, who is invited to collect the prize. Second prize. Second is Alberto Vasquez from Hungary. Very different country, as you can see. And the winner is Alexandra Kineva from Russia. Alexandra Kineva, congratulations.
Complimenti.
Congratulations.
We need to say several words. I have to mention that about 100 walks were sent by young and talented people. 40% of them were from Russia, and other 60 were from Vengria, Poland, Denmark, Germany, France, United Kingdom. And really, just being honest, I'm so happy that our international jury has chosen as the winner our Russian talented person. Really, just I'm very happy.
Thanks for all who organized this competition, for this possibility. Thanks.
Grazie. Grazie. Allora, siamo...
Thank you. We are now drawing to an end. We would like to thank all of our speakers today, the attendants who have been very patient in staying here. I hope you appreciated the themes today. See you tomorrow at 6 p.m. in the same conference room. Tomorrow we will be talking about uniqueness with great designers and architects.
Oh.